Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our new EUROPARC webinar created within the SEA project. My name is Sandra Grego. I'm EUROPARC's project officer and communications assistant. And together with my colleagues today, I will be guiding you through this webinar, focusing on the topic of strengthening the partnership between outdoor sports and protected areas. So let's see what's on our agenda today. After a short introduction, we'll go straight to the SEA project. We'll learn more about it from our project and development manager, Teresa Pastor. Take Care of Your Trails campaign will be presented to you by a general manager from International Mountain Cycling Association Europe, Mark Torsius. After that, we'll be split into 3 breakout groups for our interactive session where you'll be able to express your ideas and opinions, after which we will come back to the plenary room for a little set of conclusions, and that will be it. But before we start with everything, I want to warn you that you are being recorded. So in case you're not feeling comfortable with your face appearing on camera, please feel free to turn it off. However, we would like to know who you are. So please go to the bottom of your screen on participants. You will find your name within participant list. And when you hover over yourself, you will be able to go to more and rename. And then we would like you to write there your organization and your name, so we know who you are. And if you have something to say or any ideas you'd like to share with us during the presentations, you are free to use Zoom chat, and we will collect all of them and ask in predicted times for questions and answers. For those who might not be familiar with EUROPARC Federation, our vision is sustainable nature valued by people. EUROPARC Federation was founded in 1973 and is the largest network of protected areas. We are currently counting around 400 members in 35 countries, and we facilitate networking and organize and publish many different things like conferences, seminars and workshops, webinars like these. We have a lot of interesting materials like case studies and toolkits on our website. So please, if you're interested in any of that, visit europark.org or scan this QR code on the screen. It will take you directly to our webpage. Without further ado, I give the floor to my colleague Teresa, who will present to you the SEA project.
Thank you, Sandra. Good morning to everyone. I'm very pleased to introduce you the SEA project, which stands for Sustainability and Environmental Education in Outdoor Sports. That EUROPARC Federation, we have been involved together with another environmental NGO, Leave No Trace, and joining forces with entities representing a different kind of sports. So we have climbing sport represented by the Technical University of Munich, kayaking represented by the North of Ireland, mountain biking represented by International Mountain Biking Association, IMBA, running, hiking, and mountaineering represented by the Tara Mountain Club from Serbia, surfing represented by the Surf Club de Viana in Portugal, and also we have snow sports represented by Folkunga Land from Sweden, and then we have 2 entities that train different kinds of sports, the Krebs in France and the INEF in Catalonia. All these outdoor sports entities gather under the umbrella of ENOS, the European Network of Outdoor Sports, with whom we have been cooperating in the last years. So the main aim of this project is to introduce the concept of sustainability and environmental education in the practice of outdoor sports. And for that, we're going to produce as an output a toolbox addressed to trainers and guides, providing them with educational tools, pedagogical activities, good practices to introduce in their training programs for the outdoor sports and practitioners. And to develop this toolbox, we were first interested in understanding what was the perception about outdoor sports by protected areas managers. Hence, we conducted a survey among 94 protected areas issued from 24 European countries. And to my positive surprise, I admit it, in general, outdoor sports were not seen as a major problem in the majority of protected areas. So 38% of the respondents claimed to be neutral about outdoor sports, 45% were positive, and this is mainly because they appreciate the benefits, the positive impacts that outdoor sports bring to protected areas. So 66% say that outdoor sports help to raise awareness of natural and environmental issues. So in the words of Mark Wrighton from Nature Scout, outdoor recreation plays a key role in building awareness of the natural world, because it's much easier to foster an ethos of care for resources that people can experience at first hand. As a result, protected areas are more valued, and they are also more visited. And this is very important, especially for those protected areas that act as sustainable tourism destinations in the private areas, in remote areas, creating a positive economic impact to the whole area. Outdoor sports also help to create a better sense of community. And in many cases, they just bring direct monetary benefits to the protected area. In some cases, there is also the active involvement of sport men and women in nature conservation activity. However, there was a non-negligible 17% that were negative about outdoor sports. And this is because, of course, we all know it, that activities, sports can create also negative impact. And in some cases, in some places, for some species, for some habitats, these negative impacts can be even detrimental. So the most common issues perceived to be caused by outdoor sports in protected areas were issues about unleashed dogs, and disturbance to wild fauna. Also issues linked to excess of visitors, like parking issues, overcrowding, conflict with other users, and also irresponsible behavior with practicing in restricted areas, restricted time, or littering. And for me, the most challenging issue here is the major challenge that protected areas managers have is how they balance this issue about making a nuisance to the fauna or destroying the habitats with the main goal of a protected area, which is none less than the long-term conservation of nature, because the objectives collide. This is where steps need to be taken to balance these opposing issues. So if we take a closer look to each sports and the cause creating in the parks, we get that the most popular sport was hiking, of course, 88%. We also included coastal and marine protected areas in the study. And hiking was more linked to issues with unleashed dogs, also littering. The second most popular sport was mountain biking. 50% of the protected areas has recorded mountain biking in the place. And here, conflict and the most issues were related with conflict with other users, but also opening new trails, creating erosion, and practice in forbidden areas. Cycling came at third position. It was about practice in forbidden areas. Running, orienteering, half of the protected areas. And here the main issue was disturbance to wild fauna. Horse riding, fifth position. The issue was most about conflict with other users. Canoeing and kayaking, the main issue was disturbance to wild fauna. As it was in rock climbing, disturbance to wild fauna. Snow sports, also disturbance to wild fauna. In the case of angling, it's not only disturbance to wild fauna, but directly catching protected species. And the other sports, marine sports, the issue was mostly linked with parking issues. In caving also was about disturbance to wild fauna, paragliding and high gliding, also disturbance to wild fauna. Sailing, I think they're talking about yachts, not dinghies. The issue was about littering, especially, but also overcrowding and disturbance to wild fauna. Stand-up paddle and windsurfing issues were just linked with parking issues. If you go to the website of the project, you can find all details, information split by each sport. You go to reports and just you need to scroll down and you can have a specific card for each of the sports. We analyzed a total of 20 sports. In this survey, we were also interested in understanding and learning what kind of management approach the protected areas were taking with regards to outdoor sports. So to the question of if the protected area were engaging with the sports sector, 65% they confirm that they do it, and they did with local sport clubs mainly 52%, but also with some national sports association 31%. And the way they engage, the means of engaging they employed was mostly informal meetings, but also with the employing email, social media, online platforms, by the organization of ad hoc events, and only 43% have formal meetings. It was interesting that 30% did participated in a shared project together with outdoor sports representatives, and those that were participating in such kind of projects were the ones that appeared to be more positive about outdoor sports, have a better image. And this draws already to my first conclusion, especially taking into account that 35% of the protected areas do not engage with the sport sectors, is that there is room for work on creating more alliance between the nature and outdoor sport sectors. And this can be in the form of shared project, but also in a more participatory management of protected areas. And this is why today we have invited Mark Torsius from IMBA, and he's going to show us a positive and a shared project between outdoor sports and protected areas. And my second conclusion will be that that the overall positive perception that majority of those protected areas have from outdoor sports, we can further exploit it and by identifying and sharing solutions with the rest of protected areas and also with the Outdoor Sports Federation. And this is why we would like you to participate in the second part of the webinar, the interactive one, so that we can all together identify these best practices and share solutions. Of course, you can contact me if you have any good practice already in your mind and send me a link to my email. And I thank you for your attention and just give the floor to Mark Torsius. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction, Teresa. I just want to give an example of how we try to build this better partnership with land managers, national park managers, protected area managers from the mountain bike sector. There's a campaign that I briefly want to explain that we are running for a couple of years called Take Care of Your Trails. It's a campaign that actually started in Scotland and we adopted it in 2017 to make it a pan-European campaign. And it's all about the trail stewardship by volunteers or by mountain bike groups. The main thing that we are doing during this campaign, which normally takes a month per year, is trying to get as much actions on our European map of groups that are doing trail maintenance, trail repairs, cleanups, and sometimes if there's permission to do some rerouting or rebuilding of trails. It's basically started because we want to promote and highlight the importance of doing voluntary work in the forest, in the national park, in even peri-urban areas or urban areas. And the second one is, of course, how to strengthen that relationship between the practitioners, the outdoor sports users, and the management of those places. And we thought if you have like a really concrete action, that's the best way to know each other, to build confidence, and to start working together. Another, what we see as an important result of these kind of activities, especially with volunteers maintaining their own kind of infrastructure, is that we believe that well-maintained infrastructure helps to mitigate the impacts that outdoor sports and trail-based sports have on the environment. And then just to give a bit of an idea of the scope of this whole campaign, especially pre-COVID, we had in the best year, I think, more than 150 events in a month. In 15 European countries, more than 2,500 volunteers and 15,000 hours of volunteer work. And we know it's much more, but this is just what we kind of monitored during this 1 month campaign amongst all the groups that participated in this Take Care of Your Trails. What we've also seen is that because mountain bikers experience nature in a different way the moment they are off the bike and are doing trail maintenance. So in a certain way, it also helps them to appreciate nature even more, get a better connection to it, and especially if you're out there quite often, the willingness to protect will increase as well. Let's see. In 2022, so this year, we slightly changed the campaign a little bit. We want to take small steps. So first, it was really important to motivate and get more people engaged in these basic principles of helping to maintain trails. I think we need to push a little bit further, especially for the future, so that we do a little extra lap and trying to make people more into nature conservation as well. A big theme for this year's campaign was Protect and Preserve. We linked it to Earth Day, to the European Day of Parks. We started to collaborate with the Europark Federation and to see if we could be a kind of matchmaker between, on the one hand, the needs for some national parks and protected areas to start this kind of relationship and to engage better with local mountain bikers and work on an issue or an opportunity. It was quite small. We had a few requests coming in, which we try to manage as good as possible. So there are some new projects starting up, and we've been able to match a couple of parks with local groups. What we also do is we wanna in a certain way tickle the kind of participating groups a little bit to think more about what they can do extra. So what can you do to protect nature in a better way than we do right now? So we opened a new kind of award category called the Protect and Preserve Award, where there's a grant available for a proposal that combines those two things, mountain biking and nature conservation. And that's still open. We haven't decided yet who's going to win that proposal, but it's one of the small things that we try to do as an umbrella organization to strengthen this relationship and make people more aware about places where they are riding and how to protect them. Last one, just to focus a little bit on the kind of good practices that we've seen so far. Just limited a couple of ones, but you see, like on the map, you've seen the kind of places where the current activities are taking place. So you see all these little flags here on the map, on the European map. That's where local groups are active and working on an event or an action. It's always the moment people sign up with us, they need to specifically tick the box that they have permission of the landowner and the land manager, which is super important, especially during COVID. We've seen a lot of unauthorized activities going on, which we don't want to see. And some examples, I think that we good examples that we've seen where the sport of mountain biking or recreation and an engaged local group and nature conservation are coming pretty close is, for instance, it's in the UK. The Peak District have been different kind of initiatives where not only mountain bike groups but also mountain bike groups have been involved. It's called the Repairing Paths and Protecting Peat Bog on the Cutgate Bridleway. That's something where different user groups are working together, which is an excellent example of how we can work together between park managers and user groups. I'm based in the Netherlands. I've been part of a project in the National Park Utrecht-Overig for a long time. That's where we've started from scratch with 0 volunteers to 450 volunteers that are maintaining the trail network over there. And they do a little bit of extra as well. So on certain days, they help to remove invasive plant species. They've did a fundraising action to build a Badgers tunnel, fauna tunnel. They were planting thicket and some other initiatives. So what they're trying to do is find at least one initiative per year that's different than the regular maintenance work that they do all year long, and also communicate about it. So this is always a welcome topic for the local newspapers and sometimes the national newspapers, because it's something different. So in communications, it's really a really good thing. This one must be familiar for Carol, the Capital project in Scotland, where we're looking at repairing and reducing some trails and better trail planning to protect the Capital, which is in partnership between the National Park and developing mountain biking in Scotland. And this is the kind of project that we're looking for. We want to do more of those. We know that it takes a lot of effort. We need to definitely promote the existing good examples to inspire more people to do the same. And this is just, this is mountain biking. This could be done, of course, in all kinds of sports. But this is a kind of the way we are working and what we're trying to facilitate through our network of members across Europe. That's it for now. We're going to keep it brief, so there's also more time for the breakout sessions and a real discussion. Any questions, just please put them in the chat, and I'll be welcome to answer them.
Thank you, Mark. We already have a couple of questions and some links in our chat room. The first one is from Carol. What training or citizen science activities do mountain biking volunteers take part in to learn more about the wildlife in and around the trails and therefore the potential disturbance of it? That's the first one.
I think that's really locally arranged. Of course, we rely on the park managers and authorities to give an impression, to get an idea, okay, where are the protected species? I think what's really important is that everything that we do needs to be done with permission of the land manager, so they exactly know where and what we are doing. In terms of more the technical part of maintaining and repairing trails, there's some training for that. There's another project in Europe works on, which is the first kind of trail building, trail maintenance educational project in Europe, which is going to be a 30 ECTS program in Norway. So that's the first step to make that more professional as well, and that also includes courses for volunteers in the planning. But that's something that goes beyond the kind of volunteer work. When planning new trails, there's always a kind of impact study on flora and fauna, which is pretty comprehensive. So you know that the places where the trails are planned is where the disturbance and the impact will be the least. But here again, it's a kind of the dialogue and the partnership between, on the one hand, volunteers or groups and the park authority that's the most important.
And connecting to Carol, you have in chat, please take a look. Someone, please, if you could also change your name so we know exactly who you are. They are environmental educator and mountain bike and local associations member, and work with Valencia Take Care of Your Trails project to introduce these concepts to participants. So we have live reaction to the question as well. In what frequency trails usually need to be restored is a question from Teresa.
It really depends on the place and how the trails have been built or designed. We've seen groups that doing monthly maintenance, sometimes even weekly, but it also is related to how many people are visiting a certain area. We have a couple of basic rules about the kind of grades trails should be to be sustainable or maintainable. If you exceed that grade, you will see more erosion, and that always takes more maintenance. So yeah, I would always start first with a kind of a quick scan about the quality and how the trails are, the state of the trails first, and then there will be an opportunity to think about a maintenance plan.
In addition to these questions, we have 2 links from Sonja Schreiter, and so they will be in the chat. If you're interested to see campaigns she's mentioning, please take a look at that as well. But for now, I don't see any more questions. So I will give you an opportunity to get familiar with our next session, and then you can continue this discussion in your breakout groups. We will now have 3 different breakout groups led by Carol, Teresa, and myself. I will shortly show you where you will be taken to. Each of the group leaders will give you a link to a separate Padlet. Here you'll have all of you slightly different questions, and you will be able to discuss and leave your comments in these little bubbles below each of these questions. So once you click on that, you will be able to write your comment and then either press enter or this little arrow, and that way your comment will be stored beneath the question you're answering to. More explanation on each of these questions you'll have directly from your group leaders, and I will shortly open the rooms. That will be open for around 20 minutes. But if your discussion gets really big and you have many ideas to discuss, we can give you a couple of minutes more if necessary. After that, we'll come back to the plenary room and see the conclusions of each of these sessions. Hello, welcome back to the plenary room. Let's see if Carol is also with us. Not yet.
Yeah, well, we didn't finish, Sandra, sorry.
We also had a lot of ideas, but yeah, we can now see what our ideas are and come to the conclusion. And as I've told to my group as well, if you have any ideas or comments that you would like to leave but didn't have time to in your breakout group, you will have the link to your Padlet, and please feel free to leave it there even after the webinar is finished. We'll take a look because there are plenty of great insights and ideas that we can definitely benefit from learning from these experiences. Okay, so I will shortly start with some of the main ideas collected during our session. So I've had a very interesting comment from Sonja, who told us about different rules for different outdoor sports in protected areas. And she said it's very important for each of these sports to be aware of the rules for each of them, because sometimes mountain bikers don't understand why they're not allowed to be in certain areas while hikers are. And of course, each sport, depending on the effects it has on the environment and the amount of people partaking in it, has different effect on natural environment. And therefore, this mutual understanding of these effects and from each of these outdoor sports practitioners is extremely important, so everything can function the way it's predicted with minimal negative impact on the environment or no negative impact at all. Another insight was from Ramat Hanadi Nature Park, where they say they've tried to raise awareness about dogs running without a leash, but there was no success. They installed the signs, they made pamphlets, they organized rangers who talked directly to people and explained the issue, and they even advertised in the local newspaper. But all of that didn't help. So if you're planning on doing that, apparently from this experience, you have to find a new method of raising awareness about this issue. It really surprised me, because from everything pointed out here, it really seems like a good effort was put into this action of raising awareness, but apparently it wasn't enough. Maybe there's an additional action needed. So yeah, there have been many other very interesting insights, but to keep it as brief, these are like the two highlights that I remember from my breakout group. Teresa, if you can share yours, and then we'll go to Carol.
Okay, so yeah, we also have a very interesting discussion. That's why we didn't finish with all the questions. Really sorry for that. So from Carcanos, Monica, she says a very positive relationship with the outdoor sports organizers of events. Since they are sitting together, they were able to shift the timing of the events, the races that they were organizing in this park. They only allowed 10 per year. So this allowed to avoid the breeding periods. So and one of the characteristics of the events that they allow is that they have to be historic events and that have been done for years, because there is this new explosion of different kinds of events, like extreme events, like running without clothes, things like that, that they have decided to not allow them in this park. But what was really, really interesting in the discussion that we had is the fact that foreign people issue coming from countries which are very, in which they follow the rules because they are more stricter from the old Europe, and when they go to the protected areas in Balkans or in other areas, they do not behave as they would behave in their own countries. They just relax. And this is a common problem, and it's a problem that is not only about protected areas, because it's a problem that linked to tourism in general, and I can speak for what I see in Barcelona, for example. So how do you reach these foreign people, or what can you do with them when they do behave well in their own countries, but they do not do it in the countries they are visiting? And the third discussion that we had is that perhaps in order to avoid these conflicts between users, some parks they just have decided to segregate some trails and make some of them only available for mountain bikers and the rest for runners or hikers.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Okay, Carol, can you share with us or someone from your group what were the main insights? You're muted.
Yeah, I'll do that, and I'll move into a sort of a conclusion as well at the same time, because it's easier just to do that. Yes, we managed to get through our 3 questions with some very interesting inputs coming from some individuals. So certainly with regards to thinking about how we need to work better together, I think that was generally accepted, and looking for opportunities and partnerships where both feel they're active in the partnership and they're getting a benefit from it. That would be my summation of that aspect, and just doing just establishing communication and working together, whether it be on maintenance or whether it be on wildlife protection or whether it be on communications. The very fact of just starting that collaboration is in itself a good thing and would lead to a more positive relationship, and therefore hopefully more positive management on both sides. Park management. Certainly a comment was, make sure there's someone in the park management administration who is the responsible for this type of work, so that that the outdoor sports people have got a focus, which I think is a good suggestion. And also to move away from more passive engagement. Putting things on social media or informal discussions are all well and good, and it's part of relationship building. But in order to really move forward collaboratively, that needs to be formalized in some way. So thinking about negative impacts, we did stick a little bit on our disturbance discussion, and I think really one of the key elements that came out of that was just just that sort of a understanding that the individual or the group or the person who is engaged in the outdoor sport or the recreational activity in the protected area will find it difficult to understand and see the impact of their activity firsthand on the wildlife, because it's an accumulative effect, and it's perhaps even a longer term effect. So when they're engaged in their activity at that moment in time, yeah, to them there is no issue or no problem. So there really needs to be a better understanding, a better education, better communication and awareness of that, without over exaggerating it, because we have to be aware that there are other factors that also are impacting on the biodiversity of an area. But the same token, you know, the recreational and the outdoor sports activities are a factor as well. So it's about just finding the right messaging and being able to speak that and have the outdoor sports in the protected areas, as we said in the first example, collaborating and working better towards that end. And then finally, just in our discussion about raising awareness, again, I think I could echo some of your thoughts, Sandra, and certainly as a former park manager, yes, yeah, I've tried everything, what works. It is hard, but you've always got to remember that you are dealing with a new generation all the time, and we need to be aware of new types of sports that are coming on. And I think that was another very important element that came out of our discussions, you know, that both the sports and the protected areas need to be constantly aware of new trends in the outdoor sports world, and therefore the impacts that they might have, and the communication and relationship building that needs to be done with regards to that. But just to maybe draw some conclusions from that, fundamentally this comes down to human values, isn't it? What are we valuing? And here we have sort of I wouldn't say a conflict, but we need to unpick our different sets of values. You know, we value nature. There's nobody, even in the outdoor sports world, who would not say that they don't value nature and being in the nature, even if they have a greater or lesser understanding of the impact of that sports on that nature. So yes, of course we value nature. There's no doubt in that. And that came out from the survey that was undertaken through the SEA project. But we also value our freedom to, you know, go out and engage in these sports and the enjoyment and the health benefits that we get from that. We also value the ability to make those choices. So there are values that we as people hold that we need to try and come to terms with, that the choices we might be making about the activities that we take part in might be compromising the value that we have on nature, or any other interaction between those values. So at the end of the day, it does come back down to us as people, first and foremost, and to be more informed about the choices that we make and what the value of our nature is in our protected areas. So there is clearly a responsibility on the protected area world in general to make sure that the messaging that they portray is, I think, positive, first and foremost, and secondly, inspiring, that people would want to make better choices and based on the values that they say that they have. I think there's also an element there, a fourth value perhaps, of that community value. And I agree with one of the comments I think, Teresa, your group made about having that understanding of the needs of other sports. You know, we're very much in our own world, aren't we? Whether we're sailing or surfing or mountain biking or whatever, we're in our world and what we want to do and what we need in order to enjoy that sport safely in that place. We don't really think about what the hikers need or I don't know, whatever other sport you want, kayakers need. So if I could sum up into 4 main points, I think we need to connect and communicate together. And I don't think it's necessarily, you know, somebody has to make the first move. It doesn't matter if it's the protected areas getting, you know, a better relationship with the outdoor sports in their area, or it's the outdoor sports people just taking the initiative and going to their protected area and saying, you know, we would really like to talk to you about how we can do things, better. So somebody has to make the first move, but whatever it is, we need to connect and communicate better. We need to be responsible for our actions, our own individual actions and our collective actions as a sport. So I think there's a responsibility there on the associations and the bodies who take care of these sports, to make sure that there are codes of conduct, to make sure that there are good training and good, what can I say, making people more aware of how they can engage in their sport in a more responsible way. And I think that's exactly what's the basis of this C project. But there's a responsibility too on the actions of the protected areas to make sure that the management actions that they take are fair and proportionate to the actions, to the activities, but also that they communicate well with the outdoor sports people about why those management actions need to take place, as we saw in the example from Teresa there, from with the large-scale event. The third sort of a conclusion would be to show consideration to others. It's a sort of a basic, human value, but if we're so engaged in our activity, we tend to forget that there are others around us, whether it be people who are not necessarily engaged in your activity and with whom you are interacting or indeed disturbing in some way. So it's just really that sort of basic consideration for others. And then fundamentally to not allow your activities to damage the area. Now, damage can be a very emotive word, but certainly to disturb or to create those negative impacts, whether they be noise or whether they be disturbance or whether they be physical damage to the area. So connect and communicate, be responsible for your actions, show consideration, and don't allow your activities to damage areas. That's indicated in the report that we've undertaken for the C project, but I think they are a good code of conduct for us as individuals that I think if we took those aspects on board would permeate our sports associations, would permeate the management of our protected areas and make for that harmonious relationship that we're looking for to enable outdoor sports to take place in protected areas, that everyone can benefit from, from the fantastic nature that we have in our protected areas. That would be my thoughts on that.
Thank you very much for your these conclusions, Carol, and thank you all of you who participated in the webinar and in our breakout groups. Many great ideas and insights, and we have some more coming in the chat as we are talking, so we will definitely read through all of them. But before you leave, I am now sending you a link to our feedback form. We would kindly ask you to answer it so we can see your impressions of this webinar. And before we finally end this session, I wanted to point you in the direction of 10 good principles for outdoor sports. You can find them on our website. You can also scan this QR code on the screen or go to the URL pointed below. There you will find the 10 good principles that Europark has developed together with ENOS. And if you have a protected area where you can spread the word about them and raise awareness about all these recommendations, it will be a great effort from your side as well to make people more aware about how to act in protected areas, to be able to enjoy them and respect them at the same time. So thank you guys so much one more time. I hope you've enjoyed this webinar, and we will see you again in some of our future online events.